Before we get started on physical enrichment and exercise, etc., I want to say, yeah, just sorry because if you hear snoring in the back, it's my new dog. Actually, all four of them are in my office right now while I film these videos or do the voiceover. And he just snored so loudly, so I waited already a bit, but yeah. So sorry if you hear in the back. But yeah, I hope it doesn't disturb anyone. So let's talk about physical enrichment. And one of the questions that obviously pops immediately to mind is how much exercise does my dog actually need? And the answer is probably not what you would like to hear, but this is the only thing I can tell you. And this is that it depends. It depends on your dog, right? So, as it is with so much in this course or when it comes to dogs, it is individual and it boils down to your dog, really. And we will talk about indicators that can give you some insight on where your dog probably is on the scale of how much exercise your dog needs, also maybe what kind of exercise your dog needs. I will also give you a rough rule of thumb when it comes to exercise in general. However, this is really what it is. It's a rule of thumb. So please do keep in mind this is something you really, really definitely need to tailor to your dog and to your dog's needs, physique, ability, etc. So if you're in any doubt, then please also do check with your vet and maybe get a health check, etc. So here are some indicators when you says how much exercise your dog needs or most likely will need. So one indicator is your dog's breed, then the energy level, your dog's age, your dog's health, your dog's weight, your dog's fitness, your dog's stress level, other stimulants and enrichments available to your dog, and your dog's routine. So you want to take a look into the whole package. And we will talk about puppies, senior dogs, as well as high energy dogs, and how to tire them out in the next lecture. So I kind of like split this up because I think these are three cases that are probably like the most common, and every dog has been a puppy at one point and every dog will be a senior at one point. So yeah, this will be talked about separately, but generally this is like the first indicator you want to pay attention to, or like, so basically your dog as a general, as well as obviously your own parts in it. So other stimulants and enrichments available to your dog, etc., and your dog's routine are of course heavily influenced by yourself and what you provide your dog with. Otherwise, we are talking here about your dog, right? So we're not talking about the human side. So while your own fitness level, health, ability, etc., the whole thing obviously has an impact to how much you can provide, this is not what we're talking about here. It's really about how much would your dog need, right? So this can also mean that when you cannot provide this yourself, that you might want to get someone who can help you to provide this, like a dog walker or whatever. So we look here mainly at the dog side of things. In the following, we will talk about things to consider, and this list gives you an indication. However, this list is obviously not a full list, so there's always other things to consider as well, who I might not have listed here, but this is try to cover as much as possible. So one thing is to know your breed and your dog, and we spoke about this before, and if you're in any doubt, please do check with your vet, but you do want to keep this into consideration. So breeds do have certain traits, and breed actually does matter. So if you're in doubt what your dog is, then maybe a DNA check might make sense to get an indication if you have a mongrel or a mixed breed of what actually the traits are, where certain behaviors might come from, what your dog needs. If you have if you get a puppy or if you get a bred dog, then usually you hopefully have done your homework anyways to understand the breed and really understand also the demands of the breed and what they need. Then one thing to consider or keep in mind is that working, herding, hunting breeds also need mental stimulation. So if you have a working breed, then of course if they do the real work, etc., then this is mentally stimulating. So if you have a dog who does herding, then looking at sheep and seeing maybe which sheep is like a bit off, separating the sheep from the rest of the herd, or basically doing their job, this is mentally tiring. However, if you have a border collie who is not actually working and who is maybe primarily chasing a ball or herding the doggy friends, then this just, might not be enough because they are coming from a working line maybe, or it's just in their traits to be more alert. So, it's some, like, again, breed doesn't matter. So even if they might not come from a straight working line, they have been bred to have certain traits, to have certain behaviors, more prone to show certain behaviors or needs more than other breeds. And even if they are not working dogs or have been ranged out to be working dog because they might not be having enough drive or whatever it might be to be appropriate for a working level, if you get these dogs as a pet dog, then they are still coming from this line, right? So you do want to give them mental stimulation in addition to the normal exercise they need, because you want to consider the breed, take it into account, and also want to give your dog the appropriate exercise and the appropriate level of engagement they need. And whilst you cannot just buy a herd of sheep to keep your dog happy, you want to find other ways in order to fulfill the needs and the innate behaviors your dog shows. Then one thing to keep in mind, if you have a short-nosed dog, and these are the dogs who have like a bit like this, the squashed faces, the short noses, like pugs, bulldogs, French bulldogs, etc. So basically any bulldog type, then you do want to consider how you exercise them, and also the sniffing bits. You want to take really care that you don't overdo it with your dog, because just purely from their physiques and how they have been bred, they are quite high risk for overheating, or also have compromised air passages. Loads of pugs, for example, have like this like sneezing or coughing kind of noise. So yeah, you do want to obviously be mindful of this and also pay attention to what kind of toys is your dog using, how much running do they do, how much sniffing do they do when they're out and about or whatever. Yeah, to just really keep them safe. And please consult your vet when you are in any doubt, and just be really careful when it comes to exercise, and especially in hot weathers, etc. So when you have a sighthound, one thing to keep in mind is that they usually really enjoy their sprints. Otherwise, they're pretty happy to take it easy. So if you, for example, here in London or in the UK, there are quite a few ex-racer greyhounds who have been proper sporting dogs, who have been on the racetracks. And if you see them, they are very often just walking nicely close to their new owners or their adopters. And they are not too keen on like running around a lot, and if they do, they would go for a sprint. They wouldn't necessarily go for an endurance run, but rather really enjoy quite a bit of a sprint. So this is something, how can you provide this to your dog maybe in a safe way, because you get an ex-racer, for example, you want to make sure they are not going after something fluffy. Then if you have a scent hound, they are using their nose a lot. So for them, this might be, especially if you have like a dog who is mainly bred to use their nose, then the physique might be different, to not necessarily prone to running up stairs or jumping or whatever. So you want to find ways for them to use the nose and have these activities to burn energy. So while they are already like them mentally stimulated as well, this would, for example, be a nice way for them to exercise by maybe playing nose games, scent games, or doing some sniff work, scent work. So really, again, consider the breed. If you have a giant breed dog, and I'm talking here about the really big ones, right? So whether this would be a Great Dane or whatever, again, you do want to exercise them, but you might want to pay attention to their physiques. They have to move quite a lot of mass just because they are basically giant, like they are really big. So this can be sometimes really hard on their joints. So maybe consider also whether there are any alternatives for your dog to move in a safe way. So one thing that is considered as pretty healthy for a lot of dogs, if the dog is interested in water and not scared, would be something like swimming, because it's generally just easier on the joints and on the bones. So if you have a Newfoundlander, for example, they love the water, so they are proper like water dogs, and for them, movement within the water would be way easier than maybe just outside, simply because of the mass. But yeah, so there's different things you can do. That you could also maybe look into muscle or strength exercise, something like doggy physiotherapy, etc., or slower walks, just relaxed, enjoyed walks. Also where you walk, rather than just walking on hard pavement, maybe walking more on forest floors or grounds. Or grass, etc. So there's different things you can do. So whatever breed you have, you might want to do some research into breed-related studies or information. Because as I mentioned, this list is not fully inclusive, of course, because first of all, I don't think it's possible, but second of all, also, we don't have the time for it. So these are some things to consider, and these are some starting points I give you here to start your research journey. But really, it is about understanding your dog, the breed, your dog's personality, etc. So we will talk about some more things to consider, also about mixed breeds, etc. But please also do your own research. I just wanted to highlight this at this point because I consider this really important.